All right, everybody. How's everyone doing today? My name's Bellic, and I just recently found out this scum really didn't do an update today as much as they posted a progress report. So I'm going to be going over the progress report for this stream, and you guys can let me know what you think in the comments as we're going along. I'll try to answer any questions that I come up with, or questions that you come up with. I'm great at this stuff, aren't I? Okay, so yeah, today, work in progress update for October 10th, 2018. The first thing that they stated was that they want us to keep in mind that there is no set date of release for any of the features mentioned in this post. They just want to show you what's being done. Show us what's being done? Sure, either one. Um, Also, they admit that, it's only just been a week, so there are no big news. All of this, everything I'm going over is just an update on what's being done and what has been done since the last time, and some of their plans for the immediate future. And by immediate, I mean as soon as humanly possible. So, vehicles, and I'm actually going to go ahead and zoom in here if it will let me. Vehicles. The last time they wrote. Last time we said that we started to work on the vehicles. Most of the work from the art division is over, and what is left to do what left is to do the technical part and some animations. Here's a small preview of how a casual drive in Scum could look like. They didn't put the emphasis on could. I did. Notice the head in the windshield. Personally, I think the interior looks nice, and the fact that they've got a driver who's obviously blind with those Coke bottle glasses, uh, and someone in the back is already pretty cool on its own. I'm not too sure that I'm digging the texture on the sun lamp or sunroof, um, but the head on the dashboard is amazing. I love that, and I hope that's in game. Something that I have been like demanding for a really long time. Bows. They're 90% done with third person animations. Um, and then, they gave us an editor uh, screenshot or scum shot of the first person view. Um, so there will definitely be bows in the game, and they're working on it. Um, they've added some additional cool ideas, or they're messing around with some cool ideas too, like being able to combine different types of arrow shafts and heads together. Um, they're looking at possibly exploring ideas like explosives and traps. And of course, just like any other blogger type, post, um, they want people to chime in the comments below. I have already put in my 2 cents on something that I will try to mention at the end here. Um, but we're quickly coming up on one of my favorite things um, in here, and that is the addition of a new base that they're working on. This is specifically a water themed base. Um, so we're looking at, let me actually click on the view. And yeah, that's kind of in the way. Back up. That's better. Um, Obviously it's on the shore. It's got two 2 submarine or boat bays, so 2 naval bays or entrances, um, and it includes a dock area, right? Um, so not only that, not only do you have the submarine and boat bays, but you have the dock. It also includes a bunker section, right? So now we it's like the airfield, just, it's not airplanes, right? It's not an airport, it is a seaport, um, and a bunker. And personally, I think it looks amazing. I really do hope that a lot of the areas inside of the bunker are unlocked. I really hope that they don't block off like 90% of the doors. You know, I want to explore this place when it's done. Um, and if there's really going to be a submarine or some kind of a naval vessel sitting in one of the bays, I want to be able to look inside of it. Um, Having said that, though, one thing that I'm concerned of, and I kind of give you a spoiler there, ignore that. Um, One of the things that I'm concerned of is that as big as those submarines can be, I'm worried that they might put some sentries inside. A part of me hopes that they do it, but the other part of me is saying, no, please, God, no, don't touch me that way. Um, I think it would be really cool, but it scares the hell out of me. So let me know what you guys think. Um, and now, I said that the sea base was one of my favorite things. This made me happy too. There's a lot of thought stuff going on here. A lot of hope for the future in some of the areas that I was concerned about when the game was first released. And this is one of them, scopes. Currently, there are only 2 scopes or 2 optics in the game. There is an ACOG or AGOG and a hunter scope. Um, and to be completely honest, the hunter scope does not provide as much of a magnification as I would have expected. I'm hoping, certainly hoping, that these scopes will provide something a little bit better. Um, but we now have dedicated scopes for the SVD in the form of the POSP 4 by 24. Just by that name, says that it should have a 24, could be a 24 zoom. More than likely, it's a 4x zoom, simply because of the name, but we'll see. Um, and then we have the ZF39, which is just for the Car 98. Now, neither of these do not need a rail, which is pretty big because rails were taking up inventory space. You would pick up a rail just in hopes that you might pick up the gun, even if you didn't end up needing it or you never found the gun. Well, now you don't have to worry about that. All you'll have to deal with is the inventory space for the scope itself. SVD and Car 98. Now, they've also they're also going to be making the hunting scope Hunter 85 specific, which is something that I thought that they were going to do from the get-go. So yeah, the hunting scope will now be Hunter 85 specific, and it also does not need a rail to be attached to the Hunter 85. That's good news. Makes the Hunter 85 that much better. And now we have the scopes that can only be attached with rails. You have the P223, or P223, which is one that can only be mounted to a rail and it can only be mounted on the SVD and the AK-47. And then we go back to the ACOG, which also can only be used with the rail and can only be mounted again to the SVD and the AK-47. Pretty much what ended up happening here was I think they reskinned the Hunter scope and called it the P223 scope, and then they left the ACOG alone. It actually almost looks like that's exactly what happened because I'd have to actually check, but I think that model there is what they were calling the Hunter scope. I might be wrong. Um, and now they're talking about airdrops. How these airdrops are going to be called in, we don't know. How often they're going to come in, we don't know. Is it going to be completely random? More than likely. As they have just mentioned, you can have a peek at what the containers will look like in our airdrops that will be all around the island. So we're going to be dropping a tube down out of the ground. Um, and that tube is going to be filled with weapons lockers. And it looks like you're going to have 1, 2, 3 lockers in each section. Um, so vertically, a stack of 3 lockers. And if I'm looking at that right, it looks like 7. Um, it goes 7 columns deep. So 2 rows, 7 columns deep of 3 lockers. So that is 42 lockers, if my math's right. Should be. 7 times 3 times 2. Yep. And see if we can get a better view of that. There's not much. I have to wonder if it's going to automatically open, like the door is going to automatically open, or if you're going to have a tool to open it. I just wonder how that would end up happening. But that's pretty much everything that they've posted. Um, they are still working on the 4.2 migration. Um, and there's not really a whole lot else to say. They didn't mention anything about the taming. They didn't mention anything about any new enemies or any new NPCs or whether or not the safe zones have been implemented or whether or not they're working on them. Um, and when I mentioned earlier that there was something I was going to talk about at the end here, that is the M1. The M1 was never mentioned in the scopes section. So as of yet, we still have no scope in the works for the M1. And I did mention that in the comments. The M1 is quite possibly one of my favorite weapons. Um, and there's no scope for it. I did look things up, like I did my research. I'm not a gun nut, so I don't actually know these things off the top of my head. Um, but the M1 does have scopes out there. And they are installed directly on the gun itself. You usually take a couple of screws out of the gun, and then slide them in, slide them through the mount, or they might provide you with new screws for the mount, something like that, and you attach the scope to that mount. So it's kind of like it's almost like a rail system, but not quietly. It's more like a frame mount or a sheet of metal that's specifically molded to provide the scope with a place to be installed. Um, so there are definitely M1 scopes out there or scopes that can be used with the M1, and I cannot wait for them to realized that they forgot to mention the M1 and whether or not they're working on a scope for it. I hope to hear something about that soon. Um, but for the meantime, that's about it for this short stream. I have covered everything that was in the work in progress patch, and I will be seeing you guys in game at some point. Have a great day.